Hello, I'm Cris Hardaway. Welcome to this edition of The Best Times, a series that looks at life after 50. The man who was known as the world's oldest teenager, Dick Clark, once said, "Music is the soundtrack of your life." We associate songs with events in our lives. It only takes a few bars of music to take you back to a time or a place, to remember a friend or a lover. Those memories are etched in our minds, and the music acts as a trigger to bring them out. In recent years, scientists and researchers have discovered that music can trigger memories in patients with Alzheimer's or dementia. A digital music player and a pair of headphones can play the soundtrack of their lives too, and the results can be amazing. Tonight on The Best Times, we examine the link between music and memory. Miss Velma Haynes is being wheeled into the multi-sensory room at Signature Healthcare.
Having a good day?
Velma is 99 years old and suffers from vascular dementia, the result of a fall that caused a hemorrhage in her brain. Like most dementia patients, she seems withdrawn in her own world. But watch as Rev Tom Davis places the headphones on Velma. The sound of her favorite gospel hymns seems to act like a switch that turns on her brain, and soon Velma is singing quietly to the music, not missing a single verse.
That's the whole point of the Music and Memory program, is trying to identify those songs that have been with her at different parts of her life, that somehow gets rooted in those cells of the brain, becomes a part of who she is, or who you are, and the music kind of brings that out and brings you back to kind of a sense of identity and that's what I see with her. Those hymns ground her as a person of faith.
Delois Jackson is Velma's daughter. She's witnessed firsthand the positive impact of music therapy on her mother.
She seemed more aware. When I come in the evening, I usually come mostly every afternoon at dinner time. And when I come in, she tells me, I asked her, "Did you sing today?" She said, "Yeah, we sung. We had a great time," you know. So her movement, I think it keeps her body a little bit more flexible and limber because she does move.
What I love about her is her humor. She laughs, you know, and I just think that's wonderful to be. 99 will be turning 100. She finds humor in things, and I just think, I see that being able to come out through the music, but I don't think the music has made her that way. I just think it helps release who she is.
Gospel music is the soundtrack of Velma's life. But what is the source of music's magic? It turns out that the parts of the brain that respond to music are very close to the brain's memory and mood centers.
What we have left is the senses. If the brain is not functioning, whether it's sight or taste or smell, hearing, touch, those senses kind of helps a person get connected again.
How old were you when you started going to church?
I started going to church. I started going to church with my grandmother.
With your grandmother? Okay. Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah. You remember?
What's their names?
My grandmother was Roseanne.
Roseanne? Okay. You want to listen to another song? All right, let's see what we've got. Let me put this.
What really has come through with Ms. Velma is that connection to her grandmother. Formed her, helped shape her, and she loves her. And that music helps bring you back to that sense of love for people of the past. Just that need to connect is a hunger. And I think the music kind of helps a person reconnect not just opening up to other people, but reconnect to those feelings, those emotions that you experience as a person. And I really go back to that sense of you connect with yourself.
I think it's wonderful. As long as something, music or whatever, can keep you moving and aware, that's a great thing.
We all know the power of music. Just hearing a song from your past can bring forth a flood of memories and emotions. But scientists and researchers are only beginning to understand why and how music can benefit Alzheimer's and dementia patients. To find out more about the link between music and memory, I've invited 3 guests into the studio. Deborah Farris is Regional Director of Music and Memory, a nonprofit organization that trains professional caregivers in music therapy. Dr. Mark Hammond is a geriatrician and specialist in internal medicine at Inpatient Physicians Mid-South. And you've met Rev Davis, Director of Spirituality at Signature Healthcare of Memphis. I think what we saw with Velma, to me it was amazing because it was almost like a door was opening. I don't know whether that's a good metaphor or not, you can tell me, but I'm curious to know stories of other patients, other instances that you may have seen. We've seen Velma. How does she compare to other stories?
I guess one that always comes to mind for me is a story about Sylvia. Sylvia suffered from Parkinson's disease, and she was in community-based care for the last 8 years of her life. Her body was really taken over by Parkinson's, and hers was the first personalized music playlist that I ever designed as a volunteer. We worked with her sister and created a playlist for her that was basically, you know, the Beatles and all of the music that she listened to when she was young on American Bandstand and so on. Sylvia had been nonverbal for a number of years. She really had, I guess you could say, a blank stare, really no response. So when we began to give her access to her music, the playlist that we had created, the first thing that we noticed was that she began to make eye contact with her sister during Skype sessions that the care staff would arrange each week. And then the second thing that we noticed was that she began to speak and respond to her sister after, you know, as I said, years of silence. She ultimately began to speak with her nurse, which was shocking for her nurse. And the nurse at first said, well, that's just not possible. She's nonverbal. She's been in my care for years. But ultimately, the care staff learned what Sylvia needed, how many times a day she needed access to her music and for how long and things of that nature. And so they would give her access several times throughout the day before meals to stimulate her, and she did gain weight as a result. And then also first thing in the morning before her dressing and bathing and activities of daily living. And what happened was that Sylvia would relax after she had listened to her music for a while, and then it was no longer painful for her to receive care. So ultimately, the nurse said that she was able to not only reduce but completely eliminate Sylvia's pain medications.
That is an amazing story.
Absolutely. And of course, the sister was just so profoundly moved that she said, thank you, it's like I have my sister back again. And I know nothing will cure her, but the music brings her great joy, and it's really the only thing she can participate in. So she was very happy to have that in her final years.
Reverend Davis, I mean, you've seen Velma over the course of 2 years in this music therapy. What changes have you seen with and without headphones?
When she first came, my awareness of, you know, she was very inward, didn't really, you know, notice what was going on around her or, you know, in the facility. And then over the last 2 years, she just kind of, you use the word open the door. Well, the door has been open. And even though she may not engage others, you know, or initiate a conversation or ask somebody a question, she's looking for it to happen.
One time in our kind of Bible study, we had a gentleman, his first name was Leroy, and we kind of introduced each person, and he said his name was Leroy, and she said, Leroy? She said, that's my son's name. So I don't think she
made
would
a
have done
connection.
that.
Yeah,
she made the connection, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about the science behind all of this. I mean, it's almost like magic from your description and what we've seen with Velma, what I've seen in other cases. Explain the magic to me. What does music do?
Simply put, the music centers of the brain are closely aligned with the areas of speech and language. And it's one of the last areas of the brain to be harmed by dementias in specific. And so there's a connection there. You were asking earlier about some patients that you remember. My first awareness of music and its potential was seeing patients who had suffered from strokes that impaired their ability to speak. They knew what they wanted to say, but the words wouldn't come out. That's scientifically, we call that an expressive aphasia. When you sing the lyrics, the words come out. And I guess you could say that's magical. I like to think of it as magical because I think the body is much more than what we can actually look at under a microscope or measure. We have so much more there than, and to reduce it completely to a science, I think, is unfair to the brain in a lot of aspects.
Is this communication?
Sure it is.
What kind of communication would you call it?
Well, it's hard to break it down and describe it exactly, but I think, to me, what I've seen in the brief experience I've had with music and memory is I see that there's an emotional communication that, to me, and maybe even a spiritual communication that goes beyond anything you can describe physically. It connects the part of the brain that interprets emotions and interprets these kinds of things that are hard to describe, and connects them in a way with family members, with friends, with people that they may have that can't find a way in. This is really almost like a magic door into their brain, or really more into their soul.
Do you see this as communication in your experience?
Well, I see. I being
Well, you see
ordained minister
day to day too.
I'll take the word communication and make it communion.
All right,
okay?
Fair enough.
And that's what happens when you see folks who, because of dementia or just their life losses, they go inward. This opens them up to commune. And it may not, as you say, be able to express things, but they have a sense. I'm here at the table, okay? And I think that's, for our kind of quality of care, if we can help a resident feel like they're welcome, safe, that they belong, and the music has done that. It has opened them up to be receptive. You were talking about not as resistant. It doesn't, sometimes some of our residents might be, because they're startled, because they're afraid, are defensive. This kind of takes all that away and brings them to the table.
What about family members? If we're talking about communication here, how do family members feel about this? What reactions do you get?
The family member cannot believe that the staff would take the time and the interest to discover the favorite music that holds personal meaning for their loved one. And it's very endearing. And it really changes the relationship between that, not only between the caregiver and the participant in the program, but between the caregiver and the family. So it's very endearing, and it really changes that relationship forever.
Does it have to be special music? Does it have to be a person certain? It does?
It does. So what we've always done in care environments, because of the community setting, it's really not possible to provide favorite music for an individual. It's more generic. So it's usually based on era-based or genre-based. What Music and Memory is doing is establishing a new best practice in the care industry and a gold standard, and using eras and genres of music as only the initial stepping stones to this ultimate goal of an autobiographical playlist tailored completely to the individual. And what we've discovered is that that's where the greater benefits live, and we weren't aware of it. But I think, it's all about timing, and the iPod is the means by which we deliver the music. So it's very person-centered. It goes to the individual and meets them where they are. So it's meant to be given to them when they need it, for as long as they need it, as often as they need it, and that's determined for each individual. But it has to be the music that holds personal meaning for them to take them to this higher level of engagement and community and where the benefits are.
And I think that's, I'm going to kind of piggyback here. That's part of when you talk about families. We talk about individualized playlists, but what's that, And so we kind of try to figure that out. But when we have several songs and a family member can come in and sit and listen with them, we have a splitter, and so you got two people with headsets listening to the same song. And all of a sudden, you realize which song mom or dad really likes. And then what comes out of that often is why. And so it becomes kind of a mystery and discovery of mom or dad or sister or brother. And it's wonderful to see, and it's important to really realize, or maybe for the first time, discover something about the life of a person that you didn't know. So it deepens understanding, knowledge, and relationship with families.
Are there benefits to the patients that go beyond what we've discussed? I mean, you mentioned, for example, the medication, decreasing medication.
I think it's fascinating when I hear them talking about specific playlists and how you distill this down to maybe even 20 or 30 of the most important songs at an emotional time of a patient's life, and it's almost like this is the 100 milligram dosage, and then there's another 100 to 500 songs that are maybe the 20 milligram dosage. It's without all the side effects and without any side effects other than a better connection with family and caregivers. It's fascinating when you think about it that way, because the problem we've had in long-term care for a long time is we have patients who are agitated. We don't have any medications that are approved by the FDA to treat that. So we're left with bad choices, really. No good choices in that situation. What a great choice this is.
Now, talk about your organization, Music in Memory, because you actually train professional caregivers to deliver this therapy. What's involved in that?
Yes, so Music in Memory provides services. So you could say that anyone could put some music on an iPod.
Would seem like it, wouldn't it?
But especially when individuals are in a care environment, when you begin to try and roll a program like this out to many individuals in a community care environment, you really need some experience behind it. And the staff really doesn't have time to recreate the wheel. So what we provide is formalized training, resources, abundant resources, ongoing support for care organizations. So care organizations of all types, although the program really began in skilled care, which is nursing homes, care professionals have taken it into every type of environment that provides care that you can imagine, really. And so we train those individuals and certify that care organization to deliver and create the music.
Now, is this something that family caregivers can do?
Absolutely. And, I want to make sure everyone knows, too, that, on our website at musicinmemory.org, there are publications and resources that can help these family caregivers at home that are free to them, that they can download and access. Because caregiving is such a challenge, it's high stress, and sometimes these family members have been on a really long journey with their loved one, especially when you're looking at dementia and Alzheimer's specifically. And they just kind of run out of options. And they really are in need of some renewed hope and some tools that they can really use today. And there's a process they can use today that can make, for example, you could have several playlists on one little iPod, about this little larger than a quarter, that'll hold more than 200 songs. And let's say that we have a resting playlist for mom or dad. So instead of medication, we can give them their resting playlist and help them fall asleep. And then we can also have another playlist for activity to cause them to be more active and engaged. They communicate more. And these family members it creates an opportunity for them to establish some new and lasting memories with their loved one that they might not have had otherwise. We also have a lot of caregivers who use this program strategically. And when I say that, I mean specifically, let's say that dad really hates to visit and go to his doctor's appointment. But if he could listen to his favorite music, now dad can dance out the door and all the way to the doctor's office while he's at the doctor's office and all the way back home. So that episode or that experience that's so stressful and challenging for everyone, that can all change through the power of the music.
I'm curious as to where this is headed in the future. I mean, we've talked about opening lines of communication, opening doors, whatever. How far can we take this? Where is it going to go? I'll let you answer that one.
Boy, I just see an incredible horizon here. I think this is one of the first applications for this. Dementia patients in nursing homes, this is a part of our society that has been isolated, that has needed to feel connected to the rest of us. And I think intuitively we all want to be connected to them too, we just don't know how. This is what a wonderful tool to be able to keep that connection as long as we can. I just think it has enormous potential, and I think when you start looking at other diseases and you look at the science of music and you look at the computer age and you look at all these kids now that have so much technological information and music ability in their head, to me, I'm not smart enough to figure all this out, but I know that there is an application here, many applications that spans many levels of care, including hospital care, nursing home care, hospice care, any medical arena that you can think of and any disease that you can think of has a potential application for this therapy to enhance their recovery. I'm not saying it's a standalone cure.
It's not a cure,
but it's
no.
an adjunct. It's a wonderful adjunct. I mean, when you think about patients undergoing bypass surgery who have a high incidence of depression post-surgery, this would be a great application to look at possibly applying it there. I think the dementia aspect is an obvious first area, and we need as a country to really embrace this. And I think we will, because it works. And I think the powers that be will see that this is so much better than what we are doing now, that eventually the payer sources will come on board too. Other parts of the country have caught on quicker than we have maybe, but I think at the end of the day, I just see an endless horizon of possibilities for the connection between music and medicine.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being on The Best Times and talking about this fascinating link between music and memory. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
For more information on music therapy, go to the website of Music and Memory. Want more information about life after 50? Go online to watch more shows and find more resources. And send us your feedback and story ideas to besttimes@wkno.org. That's all for this edition of The Best Times. Please join us next week for more stories about life after 50. Until then, I'm Cris Hardaway. Thanks for watching. Good night. Funding for The Best Times is provided by